It's required to do office. So I could add up how many required office hours plus meeting times and stuff and try to figure it out by hourly, but you know, I'd have to go see how many. I'd have to talk with each officer to do that for you.
I can figure that out. I can figure that out while we're doing it.
If you don't mind, yeah. It'll also be different for each officer. What's in the past, our stipends were handled by a percentage of tuition, of in-state tuition. That was removed. I think we figured out 2 years ago that now it's just left up to Parliament and Finance to set that.
Yes, Mr. Leonis.
Is the annual raise percentage around like 2 or 3%?
The cost of living only raise is 4.4%, but it only applies to salaried full-time employees. We're stipended, so we really don't need to think about that.
Just so everyone is aware,
it is an option.
The way that executive stipends have worked, right? Just so everyone's aware, the way executive stipends have worked is typically every few years, Parliament acts to raise the stipends of officers. There's no set raise every year. Usually they stay the same for a few years at a time, and then they get increased at a certain point when people realize the need to raise. That's how it's worked since the beginning.
Previous raise was 2 years ago. Just to give a little background, sorry I didn't do that before. But we do need that section filled out to do the budgets. Every year we need to make a decision on it. But again, that's all in your court. Any further questions?
Couldn't we just set it so that every year it's a set percentage, like 2 or 3%?
I don't think that'd be a good idea. The way it's set up this way so that, say, 10 years down the road, we have another huge deficit. You know, we have so many clubs that we're already having trouble funding them. Even with an increase, we'd have trouble funding them or something, you know, which has happened in the past. Then it's not set in stone that we have to follow these increases or it has to be this. It gives us a little leeway to play with them and make sure that, you know, the clubs come before anything else.
When was the last increase?
2 years ago.
So
It's fairly recently, but again, I don't feel confident making this decision because I am an officer. I just don't think that would be fair.
Ms. Weiss?
Yeah, just curious if anyone knew what the stipends were for the other organizations that offer stipends.
I don't off the top of my head. I have them upstairs. Sally, do you happen to know what's the general manager make?
$375 a month.
So it's slightly under the president and it's way under the president. About $100 under the treasurer, and probably about the same for the vice president. So it's under them, but
Probably about 80%, or maybe 85%.
they're fairly close though.
I'll tell you that my stipend is $512 a month, which I'm doing it right now. The president, just on office hours, not meetings and follow meetings and whatnot, makes $15.36 an hour. If I work, time out. If you work the minimum amount of hours, I'm in the office much more.
I got $17. I'm gonna make more.
All right, order please. We're out of time limit here, so now we're going to have the floor. Ms. Weiss, still has the floor.
One other thing, I know it's hard to know this information, but do we know, do the other clubs that offer a stipend on a regular basis up their stipends?
They just upped them last year. They were just up last year and they're capped for 5 years for stipend and positions. We don't have a cap set. If we did, then I could just level fund them straight through. But we do have to have this discussion.
Sure.
That's it. Anything else?
No, thank you.
Mrs. Dooley.
I have a question. I know that different positions, speaker, secretary, have committees that they oversee.
Yeah.
I know that the deputy speaker has a certain committee, and I know the vice president's on. I'm wondering what the discrepancy between the different hours.
Speaker and deputy speaker aren't required to hold office hours. The other 4 officers are required to hold office hours. We're required to have I want to say six required hours a week. Plus, we all have committees, except for Chris is the only one that doesn't have a set committee that he runs because he is ex officio in almost all of them. Every single one? Yeah. So there is a lot of meeting time that we don't figure into our office hours. You know, there is a lot of time up there, and all of us actually put in way over the 6 hours. I don't know, I'm usually in there, I think my schedule this year has like 10 to 12 hours of just office hours. That's not including finance meetings, parliament meetings, you know, that's outside of our.
Can you repeat, was it deputy speaker and
And
speaker that
speaker.
don't have?
Correct.
So why is deputy speaker half the amount of speaker? I mean, I understand your responsibilities, I'm just.
I can clarify that, please. Thank you, Mr. Kelly. The executive council is the 4 officers. They run the corporation, and they also are the officers of the student body at the same time. The speaker and deputy speaker are officers of parliament. We're not allowed to vote on executive council actions. We can attend meetings of the executive council at the pleasure of the president, but we're not even required to attend meetings. So basically our job, the reason why we receive less money than they do is because we just run parliament meetings and we have committee in charge. And there are even parliament members that are in charge of committees, so it's not like we have a whole lot to do. And as he said, we don't have office hours. The reason why the speaker makes more than the deputy speaker, the speaker has more responsibilities than the deputy speaker in terms of actually running parliament meetings and room set up and things of that nature. Training parliament members, running the orientation meeting, and it's also a higher ranking position.
Just if you're looking at the other offices also, the 4 corporate officers, their stipends are based on the amount of work that comes with the position. So in hierarchy, it goes president, vice president, treasurer, secretary, treasurer. In order of stipend amounts, it's president, treasurer, vice president, secretary. So it's like the amount of work involved does change. Further questions?
Mr. Escobar?
I thought the executive salaries were based on the cost of tuition.
It used to be up until 2 years ago. We removed it because tuition's growing at such a huge rate right now, for the most part anyway, that at some point officer stipends would be astronomical.
Just to clarify that further, and I was the one that suggested that initially 2 years ago. The idea behind it was we set the officers' positions at a certain percentage of that year's tuition, and that would stay that way for a few years. And so that way there'd be no increases. It would be set at the 06, 07 tuition level and not raised until Parliament side raised it. And we were anticipating 4 or 5 years before that happened, at least.
I'm just trying to see if I have these.
So what year are we in?
We're in the second year. We'll be going into the third.
Is there ever going to be a raise of parliament members' salary?
That's up to Parliament.
That's up front if you guys wanted to raise it.
Parliament was raised 2 years ago, was $10, and was raised 2 years ago to $20. It took effect last year.
You do have the ability to alter that right now if you so choose. Any of the numbers on this sheet can be altered after this 15-minute discussion on just officers.
Yes. Right now, we're just running with 6 officers. We have 5 minutes remaining of discussion. Mrs. Julie is next.
I know we had talked earlier about town hall meetings being mandatory for parliament members, so I'm wondering if this parliament 15,200 is including, $20 a meeting is including town hall meetings?
No. The $20 per meeting only is our set parliament meetings on the schedule. The town hall meetings were made mandatory, but you do not get paid for them.
And they only made mandatory for this year.
this year.
If Parliament wants to do it mandatory next year, they have to remake that motion. That motion expires when we expire, on June 1st.
So when would we go about changing that?
That could be done tonight as well, when we get to that point.
Okay.
Yeah.
After this officer discussion. Ms. Weiss?
So wait, when the amount is raised, is the money then, does it come from somewhere else? You know what I mean? Like, does that mean less money goes to student organizations or?
It would come out of what we're allowed to give out at the budget hearings, which I don't know what that amount is as of the coming hearings yet. Last year it was, I want to say like just under $600,000 total budget. But I think we could give out like $500,000 because we gave ourselves a loan last year to cover it. But it does come out of the same initial allocation, but that doesn't include the clubs that come out during the year or the amount that finance is allowed to give out during the year. That's just pre-year budgeting. So,
Just something for folks to think
Yeah.
about, especially, raising yourself to $50 a meeting
Yes.
would then be screwing your organization.
yeah.
I would think about raising it to at least minimum wage for around, if it stay around. I believe we make what,
$740.
Well, that's out of order. We have to discuss that after the 15
All right, are
minutes.
we talking about Parliament, Mr. Escobar, or the executive officers?
for parliament members.
Yeah, we're not able to discuss
All right,
parliament members right now. We'll have to discuss that one.
All right, are you all set, Ms. Weiss?
Yes, I think.
Mr. Escobar, you're next on the list. Do you have any discussion on the executive officers, Mr. Escobar? Did you have any other discussion? No, all right. Ms. Dr. King?
When I look at these numbers, they always sort of jump out at me as looking, wow, this seems really high. But, it's all relative, so I guess I'm kind of wondering how they might compare to other schools like college. Do other officers in other schools receive stipends? Versus, would you know, in how much they are?
Chris, if you can but I am.
I recall that from when we talked about it 2 years ago, that we were on the lower side of the student government stipends. How high were they? There was a grand divide. Some getting and some presidents got as much as $20,000 to go to school there.
Sometimes it depends on what else is required of you. I know some schools require their student government to be here over the summer. So that kind of difference too.
So, I mean, the answer to the question is there's a large range. And we were
Actually,
towards the bottom.
because you reminded me that we did a survey of schools like Bridgewater and other locals. Actually, probably out of the 10 schools around the area that we surveyed, maybe it's like 7, probably 4 or 5 of them had stipends. A couple of them didn't. And then some of them had stipends maybe a little bit higher than what we have. And so I think we're probably, of the ones that actually gave stipends, we're probably in the middle. I do remember there was some discussion about some university in Wisconsin. And the president did get $10,000 or $20,000 a year.
Like University of Southern California.
Yeah, it was some University of Wisconsin. But in the local area, these are.
Yeah, no, I remember that.
All right, so last second question. Dr. King, Corey, go down as well. Dr. King?
Another question.
One moment. Mr. Brown's next on the list, then Mr. Patterson, and then Mr. Escobar.
I want to make one point quickly. I'm not going to speak in favor or against raising the stipends, but, and then I'm going to give you what the hour breakdown is.
You have 1 minute to do it.
Okay. When we started stipends in 1978, I have a car that's 1978. Long story is, the short story is you could have bought that car for the sticker price with the president's stipend. Now, the president's stipend is $41.44, and I bought a new car, and that doesn't pay for it. So, relatively speaking, they're lower than they had been in the past. As far as the hourly breakdown, the president, I was wrong when I said before, Nigel was right. The president makes $17.27 an hour, vice president $13.81, the secretary $12.08, and the treasurer $15.54. That's just if they do the minimum 6 hours of office hours and attend parliament meetings.
How many
And
weeks?
how many weeks for the
Academic.
academic year? Right. That means that no extra work, no extra meetings, no parliament meetings more than 2 hours, no extra meetings, no finance meetings, no committee meetings, none of that. So that's just for your office hours and attend the parliament meetings for 2 hours apiece.
All right, there are 4 additional people on the list. Time has expired. I can extend it by unanimous consent if there is no objection.
2 minutes.
Hearing no objection?
Object.
Yes, There's objections. So the only way to extend discussion is if there's a motion.
I motion. I'll second.
To extend discussion?
Yes.
How many minutes?
10.
No. That's a little excessive.
But it's just like,
Oh, well, that's,
wait, how many
Point
times?
of information?
yes.
5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Well, the four who are on the list, raise their hands up before the time is up. So we could extend it to these four.
Oh.
who spoke.
And not at that.
A motion to extend the date time on 2/3 vote to pass. Mr. Resendez made the motion, who seconded it? Seconded by Ms. Andrews. Yep, so this is a motion to extend the debate time. Yeah, we need a 2/3 vote, no discussion. All those in favor of extending debate time 10 minutes?
5.
5 minutes? Say aye.
For those 4 people.
All right, order. All right, the motion is Mr. Resendez. The motion is Mr. Resendez, it was seconded by Mr. Andrews. The motion I heard was to extend debate time. We can't extend debate time just to cover 4 people because the original motion was a time limit motion, so it has to be a time. You can't just.
The original was
Motion
10
is 10
minutes.
minutes, correct?
10. Spend 15 minutes extra to
All right, out of order.
10.
10 minutes. Motion, as I stated earlier, is to extend debate time 10 minutes. Made by Mr. Resendez, seconded by Mr. Andrews. Needs a 2/3 vote to pass. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no.
No.
Go to a hand vote. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 1, 2, 3, 6. 13 in favor. All opposed, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 7. 13 to 7. Yeah, that's not 2/3. Motion fails. Actually, at this point now, we need a motion.
Can I make a motion?
Yes, Mr. Leary.
I'll make a motion to extend the conversation just to the last 4 people on the list.
That rule up out of order. That was just voted down by Parliament.
I want you to reopen the question on.
All right, order, please. Raise your placard if you want to make a comment. Mr. Howland first.
On the previous vote that you just took, there's no tag workers?
No.
Oh, okay.
There's no, on a 2/3 vote, issues don't matter.
I was going to extend
Okay.
that.
If you don't vote, you don't vote on the 2/3. If you don't vote, you don't vote on the motion. Abstentions don't count. Abstention is no vote. Abstentions.
I motion to reopen discussion of Rhode Island Student Community Government Incorporated's 2009-2010 budget request.
Are you talking about the officers? Or the-
No, I'm talking about the entirety of the request.
Second.
You can, okay, motions are made by Mr. Andrews, seconded by Ms. Brown to go back to our discussion on the entire request. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries.
Point of clarification.
So, yes, Mr. Scott.
The officer stipends are part of the entire request, so if you do have a question or a statement on those, they can be admissible.
That is true. That we just debate for 15 minutes, basically.
It was just
Now
on that. Now we're gonna debate the entire.
Go back to the new list.
All right, upon, the class discussion and taking a look at the budget request, I just, took into consideration the amount of time that we spend here. And I think that one concern of a lot of people here is the amount of time that we spend here. Everybody, 2-2, the time limit here, time limit there. Well, I think if people had a little bit more incentive to stay here, maybe we wouldn't have so much of a problem. Average parliament meetings last from 7 to 10 p.m. That's on average. So, I didn't try to kill me. So, doing the math, I found that with the Rhode Island state minimum wage, $7.40 an hour, if we're here if we raised our stipends, parliament stipends, to $25 per meeting, that basically means Parliament is paying us to be here for 3.39 hours, which probably works out to what, like 3 hours and 20 minutes?
Yeah.
So basically, it would cut out the complaints. Everybody would be getting paid a wage. We'd basically be getting paid minimum wage to be here, 3 hours a week. And like the officers who are underpaid for the actual amount of work that they do, it makes everything equitable, or more or less. So, can I make a motion to raise Parliament stipends to $25 per meeting?
Second.
Motion has been made by Mr. Andrews, seconded by Mr. Who made motion? Who seconded the motion? Came from the right side. Ms. Resendez? Motion made by Mr. Andrews, seconded by Ms. Resendez to raise Parliament and finance stipends to $25 a meeting. Discussion. Mr. Kelly.
Sally, how many members are there? How many seats are there on Parliament? I'm just trying to think how many meetings there are and how many seats there are, just so I can do the math.
I don't have to schedule it, but,
Kane will look up how many seats are on the bylaws. I'll look up the schedule. Maintain status in the chamber while we're looking this up, please. Student seats. 45 student seats in Parliament. There are 18 dates for Parliament meetings scheduled each year. There was a question that was asked of us. Mr. Kelly?
Okay. That will raise line 131G to $20,250.
That's $20,250
and no change.
250.
There are 10 seats on finance, correct?
I'm sorry, there's a lot of side conversation. What was that?
They're all, that's half per page, that's correct. Thank you, Sally. And raise line 131H finance to $2,250. And no change.
those figures again.
Line 131G.
$20,250, 20250, and 131H to $2,250, that's 2250. Correct, Mr. Treasurer?
Correct.
Do you have anything further?
Not on that, no.
All right, Mr. Volsky. You all set? Okay. Further discussion on Mr. Andrews' motion to raise the Parliament and finance stipends for meetings. Hearing no further discussion, all those in favor of raising the stipends say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no. Abstentions? Ms. Almeida abstains, and Ms. Cavalli abstains. Motion carries.
Is there still a list?
Yes, we're going back to the original list. Mr. Andrews, you still have the floor.
I'm done.
Mr. Patterson.
I just honestly had a question on how we can vote on our own pay.
Because it doesn't affect us now, it affects Parliament next year, which who knows if it's coming from. Just like U.S. Congress does, they vote for their own pay raise, but it doesn't affect them that year, it affects them the year after. It used to be controversial because Congress used to give themselves pay raises in the year they're in. They added a constitutional amendment. All right, you need to know that.
Point of order.
That was in line. That was an in-order point of order. Mr. Volsi?
Yeah, I'd like to do both,
Two-two roll.
Sorry.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made by Mr. Volsi and seconded by Mr. Evangelista to institute the 2-2 rule, where each panel member from this point forward on this particular item can speak twice for 2 minutes each time. All those in favor of instituting the 2-2 rule, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no.
No.
Motion carries. 2-2 rule is now in effect. Did you have anything further, Mr. Volsi?
No.
Next on the list is Mr. Zendes.
I just want to also go with what Mr. Andrews is going on. You guys know meetings are never quick. They'll just expect to stay longer. 2x2 rules and doing call to questions is only stopping people from wanting to talk. And they're just like, well, you better be mad at me if I don't say something. Or 2x2 rule, well, I don't want to say because then what if something else pops up and then I'm not going to be able to say anything. But that's all I want to say. And as for the executive board stipends, I was thinking like, if we increase it, it only makes a position on the executive officer board more coveted. So people are going to be trying to get them impeached or doing votes no confidences against them just so that they can be in that position. Oh yeah. Yeah, that's why it's just like by increasing the stipend amount, it's just like, okay, well I want that. They're getting paid for it, but it's just how I feel.
All set.
Yeah.
Next up is Mrs. Dooley.
I think if someone is that covetous, that they want to be that nasty, they don't deserve to be on Parliament. I'm not disagreeing with you,
No,
I'm just.
I agree.
But I don't understand 131J, budget hearings, 749, who is that?
That's on the Finance Commission,
That is
for the
on
meeting
Finance.
that you're here. That's already done at minimum wage for the state of Rhode Island, either way. I don't suggest altering that at all, because it is 2 8-hour days, plus we buy them lunch, breakfast and lunch both days. So they are, I don't suggest we alter that too much.
That's finance, Parliament, and
No,
non-Parliament.
that's just finance.
Right, but I'm saying those are finance members that are on Parliament and are not on.
Yes,
Parliament.
yes, that covers everybody,
Okay.
including myself for the treasurer. What? Not me? Oh, doesn't cover me. Can't. It's okay. Are you coming?
Secretary of the
Finance?
You can.
I don't have to.
Anything further, Mrs. Dooley?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, next up is Mr. Bernal.
I don't know if, my lights were on my truck, so I had to shut them off. And it started, so that's good. I would suggest leaving the officers the same. I wouldn't decrease them. Like I say, you could have bought a car and the president's stipend when you first had stipends, you can't do that now, so. I definitely am against decreasing it. I would say leaving it the same or giving a moderate increase, but I think that is sufficient. So I would suggest leaving it the same. I'm not going to motion, but, I think whoever is in office doesn't really do it for the money. They do it just for the service and the experience. So that's a down increase. I think that it's sufficient.
Thank you, Mr. Bernal. Mr. Volsi.
Yeah, I wanted to explain the reason why I voted for the 2 rule. It's because it's not that I understand meetings when I run long, so I'm expecting that. However, the reason why I put it is because so people can get to the point that they got here clearly instead of waving around the point that they're trying to get. So that's why I asked that.
Thank you, Mr. Volsi. Mr. Andrews.
Oh, point of information?
Yes,
Even though you put in the 2x2 rule, you didn't put a time limit on it so they could talk as much as they want.
but they can only talk for 2 minutes each time.
Oh, well, that's still a lot. That's still a lot.
That's your second turn. Well, just,
All right, further discussion, there's no one on the list. Is there further discussion on the government operating budget? Mr. Kelly?
We do need a decision to be made about officer stipends before we can go to approval of the entire SCG budget.
I made a motion to leave off.
As what?
All right, well, Mr. Andrews is next. He comes back, and Ms. Almeida.
Am I waiting for Mr. Andrews?
No, it's you have the floor.
I'd like to make a motion to maintain the stipends
for next year, for the 2009-2010 request for the 6 executive officers.
Second.
Motion made by Ms. Almeida, seconded by Mr. Patterson to maintain the stipend levels for the President, Vice President, Treasurer, Secretary, Speaker, and Deputy Speaker. Discussion. Discussion. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, say no. Abstentions. Mr. Laguerre, Mr. Bonanno, Mr. Leonidas, Mr. Evangelista, and Mr. Kelly abstain. Motion carries. Back to the original list, Mr. Andrews. I'm still not here, so I'm going to pass the gavel this time to the Deputy Speaker. I just had one thing I wanted to add to the budget. I agree with Mr. Bonanno and Ms. Almeida that the stipends are adequate. The same this year, and probably for another 2 or 3 years, and then maybe if the economy continues to spiral out of control, a couple of years, maybe raise them again. But my intent in raising the stipends to the level that they were at 2 years ago was for that to last a while, because it was a big jump at that time, and at that time it had been a while since they were raised. I think it had been 7 or 8 years since they had really received a significant raise. They had pretty much been at the same level for 30 years. They would raise a couple $100 every few years. So I was all in favor of raising them a big jump then, with the intent that they stay the same for 5 or 6 years, and we're still a little ways away from that. So I'm glad Parliament also feels that way, and then we keep those stipends the same. The only other thing I would like to talk about is the national dues, Mr. Kelly.
I wasn't sure if that fee was for 1 year or subsequent years.
Yep. The American Student Government Association.
Is that a yearly fee?
It is an annual fee, so I would make a motion that we add item 215 back to annual dues, $497.
Second.
And just so everybody knows, that covers our membership in the American Student Government Association, which last year Parliament voted to join. That gives us access to survey results, data, and association of all the student government. So it's a very good tool for the Executive Council and Parliament members to use.
Motion.
Mr. Garrett,
All those in favor?
no discussion.
No discussion.
This is for the national dues.
Yeah, as far as the national dues is concerned, last year I believe we were supposed to have access to that.
It has not been purchased yet. We have not actually gone in and done the paperwork. Nick, are you doing that with Joan this week?
Yes.
Yes, he's doing that this week. It'll be for a year, so we'll come up mid-year next year.
Right, so as of next week or the week after, we'll have access to the system
Yeah.
that we were talking about last year.
Yep.
All right, that's it. That question.
Anyone else? All those in favor of making the move in line item 215?
Aye.
All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Abstain? Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Speaker. Further, Mr. Speaker? Yes.
Since you passed the gavel for part of the budget, Mr. Laguerre pertains to that.
I only passed the gavel for that one specific.
Yeah, but it came up during, you made the motion.
I will let you correct. Mr. Laguerre will retain the gavel. Go after this person.
Mr. Andrews, you have the floor.
I just wanted to ask a question about my 217 co-sponsorship. As I know, student government is not allowed to have events. I'm not sure what that has to do.
That covers yearly events that we co-sponsor on behalf of all organizations, such as the Block Party. There's things that we sponsor with the college, like Leadership Retreat, Homecoming. There's a few other things that are involved in there that we step in and we co-sponsor with the school in general, so that everybody, it's kind of like every club's involved in it. For a while.
Also,
It's not really us, like then every club would step up or we help out with one specific aspect of it.
now how do we, never mind, because I just remembered for events like the store geese and the holiday dinner, we have to finance anyway, so.
Holiday dinner does not, it's figured in as part of the food service line item. It's figured in at about $2,500.
Now, it's supposed to be separate and goes.
And it has to go finance.
All right, I would go ahead.
Mr. Spinner?
I know the discussion sort of switched, but couldn't we put a cap on the executive board salaries for like the next 5 years?
That would have to be done at budget hearings, I believe. I think at budget hearing times, we can add a stipulation that not increase for a certain amount of time.
Point of information, Mr. Speaker. I said, if I may, this is the first step in the budget process where we as sort of a club or organization approve our budget. Then it goes to the budget hearings, the finance commission will review this, and it'll come back to Parliament again one final time where we'll have another opportunity to amend it if money is available in April. This is the first step, a three-step process for us.
Mr. Spiller, any more?
No.
Any more discussion? Okay.
The totals were after the changes of changes to line 131G, 131H, and 215. Bring the total up from $71,990 to $77,987 and no change.
Mr. Dunn.
I just want to know why there was nothing in line 218B.
For a website, that fee was to cover the startup for the creation of a website. Since we have created a website, it's no longer necessary.
Oh, and then the
webmaster is paid out of a stipended position.
Okay.
The two issues are completely separate because we have the ability to contract somebody to build the website, and then our webmaster is a completely separate issue. Okay.
Further discussion?
Does that cover the operating cost of the website itself? Like
That did come out of the operating cost to buy our domain names did come out of there. We have them for, I believe we bought 10 years, so it will not have to be revisited until they expire in 10 years. We either bought 5 or 10 years, I can't remember which one, sorry.
It was 10.
I think it was. I think we bought the maximum term it would allow us to.
Further discussion? All those in favor of approving the budget as amended?
Aye.
All those in favor of approving the budget as amended, I don't hear one.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
All right, thank you.
All right, our next order of business on the agenda is also Mr. Kelly, SCG payroll.
All right, I'd like you guys to turn to the sheet that kind of looks like this. Okay. Kind of looks like this, it's a little jacket like this. Mine's probably just bigger than yours. Wow, that was rough.
Kelly has the floor.
Since there is no personnel review committee and we don't have time at this point to form one, this duty would normally fall to them to suggest either cost of living raise or a raise for Sally, Joan, and Martha Doyer. That would be our administrative assistant, our office assistant, and the director of the preschool. The co-op preschool is completely funded and operated by student community government. The only person that does not usually get a cost of living raise is the assistant teacher. Last year, all of our full-time employees got a substantial raise to bring them up to the level that their position is getting at other institutions our size, with student governments the size of ours. So they have had a rather large increase recently, so I would not suggest increasing their base salary. I would support a cost of living increase. I've written down 3 cost of living increases, one of 3%, 4%, and 5%, as well as the figures for fiscal year 08-09. The standard cost of living rate currently for the region, which is based out of Boston, is 4.4%, just as a benchmark for you guys to think about. You can kind of ignore the bottom half of this sheet, and it would change as of whatever their salary changes might be. Okay, their vacation hours wouldn't, of course, but there are certain areas in there, like their pension plans and things like that would have to be altered. But I'd like to open it for discussion on this one matter, please.
Mr. Brown.
I'd like to throw something out there for everybody to think about. I mean, while we do want to have this discussion now, it's actually pretty important we do have this discussion now. As far as the payroll is concerned, I think that we should really talk about that at the budget time to make a personnel review committee between now and then.
That, we can, I'm sorry to interrupt, we can do that, but we do need to have this, what Parliament wants to do done now, because this is the last week
Oh, yeah, that's what I'm
Parliament
saying.
meets before we have to.
But I would say
this.
that when we vote on this, we just kind of
Yeah.
understand that we can revisit it again.
It could be altered at finance times. It's going to be revisited twice actually by this body.
Right. I would think that, 3 or 4% increase is a good idea for COLA. But other than that, I mean, they got a gigantic raise last year by a lot of percent. So, and that was in their base salary.
It was about a 15 to 20% increase last year. It was big.
So,
It was 10? I thought it was 15.
It was 10.
Maybe the proposal was 15, I don't know.
yeah, I mean, 10 is, and I'm not trying to suggest that our employees don't deserve it. I mean, they're overworked and for what they were getting beforehand. I mean, I think what they're getting now is adequate, especially that they have the summer off and I think they collect during the summer. So keep it within a COLA increase, and that's probably what I would do as far as the fiscal improvements are. That 3 or 4% of the max. Thank you.
Mrs. Dooley.
With the, if anybody has visited SCG office with the amazing responsibilities that Joan and Sally have keeping the executive board in order, and I mean that with all respect, with all the other responsibilities, I think nothing less than a 5% COLA would be appropriate.
Is that a motion?
That's a motion.
Second.
Motion by Mrs. Dooley, seconded by Mr. Patterson, to institute a 5% cost of living increase for the 3 full-time employees of student community government. Discussion. Ms. Weiss.
Yeah, I guess what I was going to say earlier, not that I think any less of Sally and Jordan's service, just as a point of information for folks, the Professional Staff Association at the college, the union my position is in, I don't remember what, I think the faculty did similar, but we all got 3% cost of living increases. I don't think I've seen 5%.
Point of information.
Yes.
The cost of living done by region is based on last year, when, of course, the economy was doing much better. This year, it was projected to be far lower. Just to clear that, it is projected for this year to be far lower than previous, I think, 5 years.
And one other just question, because I'm aware that the co-op preschool is currently like at capacity with a waiting list. Not that this is the year to add positions, but wondering if considering in the future expanding the services of the co-op.
But it is possible we would need Martha, the director, to submit a proposal to us. I guess if you wanted to add another assistant teacher, possibly. I think it's more the building that's an issue, because the way the co-op works is that we hire a full-time teacher and director, and then we hire an assistant teacher that kind of run things, and then all parents have to be involved if their student is there. They pay a tuition, they pay a student activity fee as part of their tuition, and they must be involved. So I think it's probably a facilities issue more than anything.
I think it may have something to do with their license. I know there's a cap on the number of students they can have.
Any other Weiss? Dr. King.
Chris, I just have a couple questions. Just trying to make sure I understand this. So the vacation hours that are listed underneath the top part there, ABC corresponds to administrative assistant, office assistant, and preschool teacher, right?
Correct.
So they accumulate vacation, and for example, it's 120 hours, which is basically 3 weeks.
Yep.
So in addition to their salary, they get paid,
They get paid for 3 weeks vacation. Yes.
and then they get paid an additional amount for coming here to meetings at overtime. They get paid an overtime rate.
Yeah.
That's me, yeah.
So that's just you.
That's just, and can I just add, I just noticed on here, under vacation hours for B would be 120 now, because they raised Jones' hours to 40 weeks.
Many of the figures underneath there, I'm gonna have to review and change with the change in salary. Some of those figures will change, yes.
Okay, so now if I go to the top part, do I understand this correctly? Say again for A, administrative assistant Sally's position. The $38,176 for this current year is based on working 40 hours a week for 40 weeks.
At $23.86 an hour.
So if we were to annualize that, if she were to work the 52 weeks a year, is it correct that salary would be $49,628.80?
Correct.
So I guess my question for Dr. Penfield would be, do you know how many administrative assistants on campus make $49,628 a year? Or more?
I don't know the true answer to that question, but I doubt that there are very many on this campus that annualize at that rate.
I just think, we talked about this last year when with the big increases. I think Sally Jones, Martha Dwyer do a great job, but, I just think there has to be some
Some great news.
And I know that and I appreciate the cost of living was a lot more expensive this year, and since then gas went from $4 a gallon down to $100 a gallon, and housing prices, dropped by 40%, so, I think, I don't know, I don't think we want to create such inequities that it really causes other kinds of problems later.
Yeah.
Mr. Brown?
Well, I agree that with Sarah Joy, I work for Joe and Sally every day. They do a fantastic job. Sometimes, huh?
They put up with you.
They do. I didn't say put up, I said work. However, a COLA increase isn't job performance related. It's based on cost of living increase. Last year when we increased their base salary, that was job performance related. And Treasurer Kelly, please feel free to correct me if I render off what I should be talking about. I think, now I would love to give Joe and Sally a gigantic pay raise, especially Sally, because Sally puts up a lot more of my crap than anybody else. And a lot of the crap that people bring in, very patient and excellent. But like I say, that is a base pay question. I would think that a 3% COLA increase would be sufficient, based on the fact that it's 40 weeks a year. And when we expand that to 52, it's close to $50,000 a year, which is more than, for instance, a first-year teacher would make, or a first-year person in college would make, or a lot of people with degrees that have been in jobs for a long time would make. I would say 3% would be sufficient.
Mr. Spinner? Mrs. Dooley?
I think that going back to what was changed last year, regardless of what the topic of the conversation is last year. We need to think about what was done this year. And my idea of the 5% had nothing to do with the amount of work they do or how good they are. It has to do with how expensive life is. And because they get so much accomplished, I think we are ridiculous fighting over the difference between 3.4% and 5%. If we have the liberty and we have the power to do this, I think it's our obligation to not fight over the difference between 3.4 and 5% when we're talking about the responsibilities that these ladies have.
Mr. Parrish?
I
back here in Parliament, I'm a sophomore right now, I'm 20, and for me to have the power to decide, I'm straight abstaining, like that. I'm just extremely concerned with my position right now, and how I ended up deciding someone else's payroll other than my own, especially someone who does a lot more than me. I think that like whatever is sufficient at this time, whatever is the average, whatever, like Dr. King brought up, the maximum employment. There are plenty of people in this world that are not making 50,000 given certain positions. Now, whether I have the power to decide that right now is just overwhelming. So that was the only statement I wanted to make.
Mr. Keller?
Just as like food for thought, you also need to kind of look at how long, like people like Sally and Martha have been here. I mean, if Sally decides to retire this year, we're not going to be paying somebody $23.86 next year. We're going to jump that back in negotiations and find a slightly lower rate. Sally's been here for an extremely long period of time. So I think that you also have to look at how long she's been doing her job, how good she is at it, and although that's not really part of a cost of living raise, I think that could make the difference between a cost of living raise of 3% or the regional average of 4% to bring it up to 5. I think you need to kind of take all aspects of this into view, and I'm not trying to sway anybody one way or another. Because again, I work with them every day and see exactly what they have to do. But it is something that needs to be decided. Personally, I would say we should probably fund with the national average of 4%, which would actually be slightly under the national average. But I think that would be a good benchmark to go by. But that would be just my personal opinion, not as treasurer.
Mr. Andrews?
I absolutely agree with what Dr. King and what Mr. Bonanno said. I mean, Ms. Dooley, I completely understand and appreciate what you said, but you kind of jumped around. They're saying it didn't have anything to do with their job performance, yet you mentioned job performance 3 times and making your point. So if we were talking job performance, then yeah, but I think what Mr. Kelly said was, go by the 4%, as a benchmark. So, I mean, Ms. Kelly, is there any way we could whittle our way 3.5?
Well, we can make a decision. The decision is completely up to us. I've just put interval. Yeah, there we go. I can't pronounce that right now. I'm sorry. Just so that you can kind of see what the numbers would look like at different levels. I just thought it would help you guys make a more informed decision to have the numbers right there in front of you.
All right, and Mr. O'Gara, how many people on the list? 4. Well, I do think we should kind of stay below the national average at this point because it does make sense. I appreciate everything Joan and Sally do for us, but we really need to not only care about them, but we need to be fiscally responsible at the same time.
Are you stating your opinion or are you making an amendment?
I motion to, actually no, I'm going to leave it at that. I'll get the vote because
Dr. Nicholas?
The cost of college is growing, as you know, disproportionately to any other growth in prices or in costs or other things in the economy. However, wholly disconcerting facts have been revealed this week in a report published by one of those research institutes. The proportion of costs which is covering administrative expenses is growing yet faster than any other costs of maintaining colleges. And it reached at this moment almost 39%. It's 38.7% of your tuition goes to maintain various administrative offices. And this has been growing in the year by 1 or 1.5%.
Thank you, Dr. Nichols. Mr. Lendis.
So Mrs. Dooley says 5, Mr. President says 3, maybe 4 is good.
And amendment or mistake?
Amended.
Seconded.
Motion made by Ms. Resendez, seconded by Mr. Buckley to amend Mrs. Dooley's motion to change the 5% to 4%. Discussion on that amendment. Mrs. Dooley.
If we so quickly raised our $20 to $25 in a matter of 30 seconds without stressing about it, we just automatically said we're all going to get $5 more per meeting, and that also goes for non-prominent finance people, and that also goes for why are we struggling over 1% difference for these ladies?
Because that 1% is a really big amount.
You're out of order. Mrs. Dooley has the floor. Still on the floor, Mrs. Dooley.
I'm all set,
All
thank
set.
you.
Mr. Smith.
Are you looking at numbers? Now we should be doing, we should be trying to figure out the budget. If it's not necessary for this raise right now, then we shouldn't have to be arguing about it. Just go down the list. Because we're not getting any further.
This-
3, 4, 5. Everybody's just gonna keep shouting out numbers until they get the number they want. So can we just move forward?
Point of clarification.
Yes.
Payroll is handled as a completely separate thing than our regular operations budget. So this is just separate from the budget you voted on a minute ago. Payroll is completely separate. We handle it completely differently because, I don't know why we just did. I don't really have a good reason for that. But it is usually a fairly large number and a good portion of our total budget for all organizations, for student government, for everything. It is a fairly large chunk. But I think we do need the time, take the time to discuss this, even though it goes a little longer. I mean, this is something very important that would usually be done in committee work, but since we don't have the committee or the time to form it right now before this needs to go in, I think we do need to spare the time to give this the thought and detailed attention that it really deserves.
Mr. Now.
First of all, I think that this is just a preliminary suggestion to ourselves later. Keep that in mind. There will be a personnel review committee that will go over this and take the time and write the report based on the president's employee evaluations, not only this president, but presidents in the past. So, I mean, this is only a suggestion to ourselves, so we really shouldn't stress over too much. I would be happy with 4%. You know, and that's what the average is, and that's what the average is, and that should be sufficient. I have a question for those who are more learned than I am in cost of living increases. Do they all have to be the same amount for all 3 employees?
No.
I don't know, it's just, a lot of people didn't get cost of living increases this year, just in general, people's jobs.
I'm saying,
But, right.
can Sally,
That's
yeah, that's just as bad as giving it 96%, you know. But for the sake of argument, could Martha get, 1.8% and Sally get 3%?
May I answer that?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm asking.
It does not need to be done overall. I mean, it would be, at the end, I don't think it would really make payroll or anything any more difficult. The numbers, we're still going to have to run the numbers anyway for everything by position. It's really not going to affect much.
Yes, so the answer is yes, it can be
The
done.
only thing I would be worried about for that is just the employees talking to each other, saying, "Oh, I got a 5% increase, so I only got 3." I mean, just for fair, to keep things fair and level the playing field, I would highly suggest that you give everybody the same increase.
Because I would hope that at some point, the personnel review committee would take the president's suggestion of job performance into it, which would make certain things different. So, yeah, that's it. But, I mean, the bottom line is I would agree to the 4% amendment issue. I think that that's fair and in line with the rest of the country.
Mr. James.
To begin, I just think for future reference, we should avoid discussing the person's pay raise while they're in the room. No offense. It's unprofessional and inappropriate. Further, I think we should call the question. I'm not going to do it, but I think somebody should.
Next on the list is Ms. Resendez.
I don't know if this is inappropriate to ask, but Sally, what do you think?
Sally, defiance
I
answer.
don't think you want to ask that. One of the things I had a question on that was just discussed is, and maybe I'm wrong, because we've never gotten cost of living increase before, and I know that, or I thought that was kind of built into, I don't know, if the state workers get a cost of living increase. But I thought cost of living increase would be kind of across the board. If you're saying you're not giving a raise, you're giving a cost of living increase, then it's based on cost of living percentage, and it would be, great across the board, am I correct?
I think you're right. How would you justify that? Cost of living.
Cost of living is not as much.
I don't think it's,
That was the question, I don't know the answer.
Mr. Zendes, do us the floor?
Point of clarification.
Yes.
That does not, there's no law saying that you have to give everybody the same cost of living increase. I think it's just generally accepted that you spread it across the board.
Otherwise, it would be a.
I know it's, yeah, I know that there is no law pertaining to it, but again, out of fairness for all employees and to keep, peace, I would say it's in everybody's best interest to level it.
I would suggest.
All right, now, please, Mr. Zendes, do us the floor.
If Sally's done, then that's it.
Dr. King.
Yeah, I was trying to.
I'll set Mr. Howell.
I've listened to both sides, I think, very fairly. I mean, could I make, as long as we feel comfortable with this financially, could I make a motion at this point to raise it 4%?
If that's what's on the table right now.
Okay.
Mr. Keller.